Knull was defeated in the King in Black event, but that was merely a setback, for now he returns. Behold, the King in Black. Spawned in the abysmal dark eons past, he was Knull, god of the void, lord of the abyss, and eventually god of the symbiotes. Once there was only the void, a blanket of eternal darkness that cloaked Knull in its cold and peaceful embrace, until the Celestials came. Gods of torturous light, they deemed the void to be unfinished, and roused Knull from his ancient slumber to watch as they set out to fill the void. But it was Knull's kingdom, and he refused to surrender it without a fight, and so he constructed a living sword from the infinite darkness and blood of a fallen celestial, fighting back against the encroaching light by killing the gods. This blade had many names: the Necro Sword, the God Slayer, All Black. But eventually, Knull was felled by a golden knight wielding a spear that possessed powers contrary to the All Black. Knull was defeated, and the All Black was taken by another. But the Spear of Light was seemingly lost forever. Knull would rise again and create his race of symbiotes, though they would turn on him and trap him in the prison world of Clintar. Knull would break free and bring his great crusade of darkness to Earth, where he would be defeated by another who would become a new King in Black. But as always, Knull has returned, though now he finds himself much weaker than before, staring sullenly from behind the bars of a cage. Behold, the King in Black. "Not much to look at, are you, big bad King in Black?" the guard asks, clad in a dark symbiote and wielding a living spear. The Asgardian smiles spitefully as Knull hisses at him. "Was that a hiss? Like a rodent caught in a trap?" the man asks. Knull smiles at him, revealing sharp, pointed teeth. "Silly fool. Do you believe this to be the first cage to hold me captive?" Knull asks softly. He leans forward and grasps the bars. "Compared to the Clintar, this is nothing more than a shoddy stage prop, merely for show. When I escape this prison, and I will, I'll paint the entire universe with the dark ichor of my victims, and your rancid blood will be the first I dip my brush into," Knull hisses. The guard glares and steps forward, readying his spear. But the doors to the throne room open, and a strong voice orders him to stop. "Perhaps you should avoid standing so close to our special guest whilst donning one of his symbiote children, soldier," Hela calls as she stalks into the room, Tyr Odinson at her back. She waves the guard away. "Now be gone. The good general and I require some privacy with our new friend," Hela tells him. The guard bows his head and leaves the room quickly. Hela smiles at the King in Black. "Hello, Knull. I trust you are comfortable?" she asks. "And I trust you will squeal like a butchered sow, Hela, as I rip the porcine heart from your breast," he hisses as he reaches forward through the bars. But Hela grabs hold of his arm with ease. Knull stares at her in shock as she squeezes, snapping the bones in his arm. She releases him, and he quickly pulls the wounded arm back into the cage. "You! I'm going to kill you! All of you!" he gasps in anger and pain. But Hela merely smiles. "Ambitious, yet doubtful," she says with a shrug. The queen turns away from the cage. "Tell me, Tyr Odinson, what do you know of our guest?" she asks. Tyr glances at the monster in the cage. "He is a thing of the void, my lady, like cursed oblivion. he tells her. But Hela shakes her head. Not quite, General. Oblivion is the great end of all things Knull wishes to be. Oblivion is the Divisor, who sits equal to the living tribunal. He is the void. Knull is, as you correctly stated, only of it. And he exists now only on a technicality, she continues. Knull glares at them both. I'll slaughter every last one of you, he snarls. But Hela ignores him, explaining that Knull was the King in Black until he led his symbiotes in a war against Midgard and was defeated by Eddie Brock, who incinerated him in the sun. But Eddie Brock's time as the King in Black was short-lived and created an imbalance in the universe. And so, Knull was reborn. Ironic, really. When nobody is the King in Black, you return, Knull. Because you are the greatest nobody of all, Hela notes. She stands from her throne and stalks towards the cage. But Knull returned weakened, Tyr. A wisp of something that once was. A void conjured merely to fill a void. So, I gathered the threads of fate in my grip and bound him with them. And now his strength returns to me. She hisses as she reaches into the cage and grabs hold of Knull. He screams in pain as his life force is drained, siphoning into Hela. Finally, she allows him to collapse to the floor of his cage. Oh, yes, she moans. But the feeling of power passes, and she glances at her hands. Less dark energy than before. It appears you're starting to outlive your usefulness, God of Nothing. But perhaps that will be your final escape, becoming nothing again. Hela notes as she turns and walks from the room, Tyr following behind her. Alone once more, Knull slowly pulls himself into a sitting position. He is too weak to bend the bars of his cell, and finally relents. Nothing. He whispers. Nothing! Slowly, he begins to smile. He folds his hands before him and closes his glowing eyes. The Asgardian wench is right. I am nothing. I am the void, the great absence. Time to prove it, he whispers quietly. Time seems to slow in the throne room as Knull concentrates. Suddenly, he disappears from existence. The guard returns to the room, ready to taunt Knull once more. But instead, he finds the cage empty. But he merely smiles. Ha! Very clever, demon. But I know a parlor trick when I see one, the guard says as he raises his spear and stabs it between the bars. But the spear meets no resistance. Suddenly, a voice fills the room. Not a trick, but you were still correct. The cage was empty, and I am the great emptiness. When the cage was empty, I was in the cage, but the room was empty too. Knull hisses from behind him, appearing once more. He reaches out quickly and grabs hold of the man's head, and with a slight twist, rips it from the man's shoulders. Knull drops the head to the ground and reaches out, calling forth the guard's symbiote armor. It slides away and slithers onto Knull's body, becoming one with him once again. That's it, child. Return to me, away from this insignificant blight. Much better. My strength increases, Knull whispers. He turns and stalks from the room, moving through the corridors of Hela's castle. Another guard assaults him, but Knull once again allows himself to slip through the empty spaces of the universe and appear behind the man, using his unnatural strength to rip the man's spine from his back. He calls home another symbiote. Quickly, my child, come to me. We have little time, Knull whispers. More guards appear, rushing forward, But Knull is more whole. The symbiotes writhe around him, twisting and contorting as the guards attack. They lash out, knocking weapons aside and allowing Knull to move in quickly, killing the guards by slashing their throats and ripping off their limbs. I am still weak, still tired. These small tricks are all I can muster, Knull whispers as 3 more symbiotes join him, his red dragon symbol appearing on his chest. He moves through the castle until he arrives at the ship hangar, where he finds a starship waiting. Knull glares at the mortal created machine. There! Exactly what we need, my children. I'm embarrassed to admit, Knull whispers as he slithers on board. I once flew across the expanse of the universe on the back of a majestic dragon of living darkness, and now I'm reduced to pilfering this pitiful machine. Knull hisses as he appears in the cockpit and activates the ship. I must regain my full strength. But how? He questions as the ship flies away and he escapes the castle. Elsewhere, Hela uses her magic to watch Knull escape and smiles. Excellent. Our former guest is playing directly into my hands, she tells Tyr. He nods in understanding. I'm not so certain about that, my lady, he admits. This is a dangerous game you play. Is it worth gambling so much just to steal a little more power from Knull? He asks. Hela looks at him and frowns. Why, General? Surely you understand that an almost Queen in Black is no Queen in Black at all, yes? I must have all Knull's power, but I cannot tear it away from him by force. Not with the magics I currently possess. He must give up the last of his dark kingdom by his own free will, and I have placed him on the path to do just that, she explains. Finally, she begins to cast another spell, weaving powerful magics in her hands, a smile on her face. But Knull's a stubborn old goat. He may need a shepherd. It's time to make a call to an old flame, Hela whispers. The magic in her palm begins to form an image, and slowly Thanos appears and smiles at her. And that was the complete story for Knull, Issue 1 by Ewing and Tom Waltz. What did you think of today's comic? Should I add this to the list of series we cover regularly here on the channel when the next issue comes out? Let me know down below. And like and subscribe to help out the channel. I'm Dan with Comicstorian, and we will see you next time. Rest in peace, Benny.